Rhaenyra is undoubtedly the protagonist of House of the Dragon, with another character being set up as her replacement in the next Game of Thrones spin-off. House of the Dragon has depicted how inspired Rhaenyra is by Visenya Targaryen, one of the sister wives of Aegon the Conqueror. In the upcoming Aegon's Conquest series, getting the characterization of Visenya and Rhaenys right is just as important as nailing the depiction of Aegon the Conqueror. House of the Dragon Season 2 sets up Rhaenyra's replacement, the main protagonist of another Game of Thrones spin-off. While House of the Dragon's central cast is undoubtedly large, it is safe to dub Rhaenyra as the show's protagonist. The clever marketing of Team Green versus Team Black for Season 2 may not track with this, but Rhaenyra's claim in the Targaryen Dance of Dragons is the one most viewers will sympathize with, thus making her the lead character. Rhaenyra's sympathetic nature is akin to the Starks from Game of Thrones. The Starks and their children were the primary heroes of the first show based on George R.R. Martin's A Song of Ice and Fire book series. Although further back in the franchise's timeline, Rhaenyra is arguably the same for House of the Dragon. Interestingly, by House of the Dragon Season 2 Episode 5's ending, the protagonist of yet another Game of Thrones spin-off is teased thanks to Rhaenyra's inspiration. House of the Dragon establishes Visenya Targaryen and her connection to Rhaenyra. The character in question is Visenya Targaryen. In Westerosi history, Visenya is one of the three characters responsible for uniting the warring kingdoms into the United Seven Kingdoms, establishing the hierarchy of power and political landscape that permeates House of the Dragon and Game of Thrones. In House of the Dragon Season 2, Episode 5, Rhaenyra is shown perusing books about Visenya, reading up on the latter's history. Through this scene and other elements, it is clear that Visenya Targaryen is someone who inspires Rhaenyra. Visenya is someone whose example Rhaenyra wishes to follow. House of the Dragon Season 2 has established Rhaenyra's discontent at having to sit in Dragonstone while others fight a war in her name. Visenya was different, as she and her sister directly fought in Aegon's conquest to help instill their brother/husband as the leader of the United Seven Kingdoms. This inspiration shows how Visenya links to Rhaenyra, as does the latter naming her stillborn daughter after the former. Getting Visenya right will be crucial to Game of Thrones' Aegon's Conquest show. By including scenes that detail Visenya's inspiration for Rhaenyra, House of the Dragon is setting up the sister wife of Aegon the Conqueror as one of the key protagonists of a Game of Thrones show going forward. Updates about the Aegon's Conquest spin-off have been few and far between, but the series has been confirmed to be in development. If this show sees the light of day, nailing the characterization of Visenya will be just as crucial as it will Aegon the Conqueror himself. While Aegon is naturally an important character, and the fulcrum upon which the entire world of House of the Dragon and Game of Thrones hinges, Visenya and Rhaenys should be co-leads in the story of Aegon's conquest. The sister wives of the Conqueror were just as important to the conquest of Westeros as Aegon was, something that Rhaenyra is clearly aware of in House of the Dragon. By showcasing how much Rhaenyra values Visenya as an inspirational figure, the show is teasing her replacement via the next protagonist of a Game of Thrones show. What happens to Visenya Targaryen in Game of Thrones history? Like many members of House Targaryen, Visenya was a rather complicated character with a contentious relationship with the king. Still, she had faithfully supported her husband and brother's rule, mercilessly burning those who presented themselves as his enemies. Visenya was also passionate about King Aegon's safety, establishing the Kingsguard, choosing its first 7 members, and conceiving their vows, after proving that Aegon's previous protectors were inadequate by attacking her brother before they could react. However, following Aegon's death, Visenya's loyalties were with her own line. When Aegon died, his son with Rhaenys was crowned king, and Visenya openly disputed his ability to rule. Aenys I. Targaryen was not well loved by his people, and his short rule was full of conflict revolving predominantly around the Faith Militant uprising. The king and his family were ultimately forced to flee King's Landing for Dragonstone, where he fell ill and went into the care of Visenya. King Aenys' subsequent death and the crowning of Visenya's son, Maegor, as king of Westeros led many to call Aegon's sister wife a kinslayer and kingslayer. Some years later, Visenya died of a mysterious illness herself. The crown ultimately returned to Aenys' line since his son, Jaehaerys I. Targaryen, became king following Maegor's bloody reign. This is the same Jaehaerys seen at the beginning of House of the Dragon, grandfather of King Viserys and Princess Rhaenys. The blood and terror between Aegon's death and Jaehaerys' crowning means that Visenya was primarily remembered for her cruelty and as a potential kinslayer. Of course, this would make a spin-off featuring these early years of Targaryen rule all the more interesting, especially since they are so pivotal in Rhaenyra's, and later Daenerys', story. How House of the Dragon's Rhaenyra is different from Visenya. It's understandable why Rhaenyra would be so fascinated by Visenya. She may have sympathized with her ancestors' reputation for cruelty since Rhaenyra herself had been dubbed as a kinslayer. Additionally, the fact that Visenya was Aegon the Conqueror's older sister may have piqued Rhaenyra's interests since, in another age, this might have qualified the woman as queen. However, there are many ways that these two Targaryen women were different, and these traits of Visenya might have been even more responsible for Rhaenyra's admiration and inspiration. Rhaenyra laments in House of the Dragon that she hasn't been trained in combat like Visenya had. Her Targaryen ancestor was a fierce warrior who could not only cause destruction from Dragonback, but was a cunning strategist and lethal with a sword. In this way, Visenya would take what audiences have loved about characters like Daenerys and Rhaenyra even further. She wouldn't just be a powerful force in image and wisdom, but as a protagonist, Visenya would remain in the thick of things, able to act where the other Targaryen queens of the franchise were forced to sit back and wait. Of course, Visenya's differences from Rhaenyra may go beyond just this. There are indications that Visenya's cruelty wasn't just a rumor, which could mean she would be a far less sympathetic protagonist than House of the Dragon's queen. Still, this is the nature of Game of Thrones, and a potential spin-off series that sees Visenya replace Rhaenyra as a protagonist may offer a different perspective on the woman's cruel actions. Only time will tell if such a series ever becomes a reality, but it certainly seems that House of the Dragon has begun to set it up perfectly.